Alrighty. Welcome to another episode of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan, and as always, we have Meryl Solesky here with us. How's it going, Meryl?
Hey, how's it going, bud?
Well, it's finally fall. It's nice
Yeah,
and cool outside. We're waking up to in Houston right now. We're waking up to mid 60s, low 70s kind of temperature in the mornings. It's cool, crisp. Can't ask for anything better.
yes. A limits of redfish easily, right? The
Well,
whole I limit it out in 5 minutes.
Yeah, you can speak for yourself, but this
Oh
today's
wow.
episode for we're talking about the fall transition. Maybe we can help some of those folks out there who are going out and trying to experience what I think is one of the best fishing times here during the fall. Experience those awesome moments of getting their limits of redfish, limits of trout, limits of flounder, kind of thing. But before we do that, let's give a shout out to our sponsors for a printing. If you're looking for custom merch such as limits of trout, limits of flounder, kind of thing.
Sorry.
Yeah, turn that off.
Gotcha.
Anyways, if you're looking for a custom merch, go to 4A Printing, ask for Aaron. He does our custom towels and our custom buffs. Awesome gear there. If you need anything, ask for him and he'll work with you and get that done. Also, DSKA, Dirty South Kayak Anglers. You're looking for a good Facebook group to talk fishing and kayaking, head on over there. Some great people, great knowledge over there. And of course, Knock and Tail Lures, my go-to soft plastics. They are awesome, and I'm really looking forward to using this flounder season. They are going to be killer for those large flounder, especially with that. Well, I mean, recently we've been having some clear water, but with the kind of off-color water that we have here in Galveston, that extra rattle can make all the difference in getting those fish to strike. If you use code OLCP 2022, you can get a discount off your order. So go ahead and use that. And we love to see your catches. So if while you're out there, either today, tomorrow, whenever, during the fall, winter, spring, summer, send us the catches. Go to our Facebook page at facebook.com/one last cast podcast. Send us a message or just post on our page. Hey, hopefully you've used some of our knowledge and post your catches on there, and we'll be glad to share it with our community here because we do what we do for everybody else, for y'all. And we want everybody out there to have a good time and grow the sport of kayak fishing that we all love. But enough of that. I know last time we alluded to this. We may or may not make this a full episode. I think last time we did say we are going to make it a full episode, but we haven't decided what we're going to do with it yet. But people have been asking for it. Let's talk stories about Meryl's tarpon adventures. If you've been going onto his Facebook page, or if you go into our Facebook page, he's posting there as well. You've been seeing Meryl tear up the tarpon, which for Texas, at least in Galveston, around the Galveston area and surrounding areas, there are specialized guides who they can show you how to do that, but it's very difficult. It was easy; everybody would be doing it.
Right.
So Meryl's been kind of on him, and let's kind of hear what he has to say about his Texas tarpon experience.
Oh, my experience is I think it's more of a challenge. It's we get a small window in our area to catch these tarpon. The weather has to be right, the conditions have to be right. And the tarpon kind of just run through our area. Now we do have some tarpon that stay here, residential, I guess you can say. But to target them and have a higher chance of catching them, we have a small window. It's definitely very difficult. I'm still struggling. I guess the last ones that I've hooked up to, I've been successful in landing them. Landing them on a kayak has been a challenge. Successfully landed only 3 of them out of many jumps over the years. I think that's what made me more interested in catching them is I accidentally started catching them, like not looking for them, and I could never land them because I'd jump and spit the hook, and they were just such bigger, like I guess my first ones were like 40 pounds, 50 pounds. The ones I'm targeting now are like 100 plus pounds to 150, maybe even some are bigger, but the fact that they're just very big fish and they shake the hooks and they come up out of the water acrobatic and just spit the hook and they get way out of the water. I did have a live video and I think somebody screenshotted it and posted it on DSKA, and I hit the wrong button. So sorry about that, guys. But hopefully I get some more footage and get y'all a really good picture. I still have a whole bunch of pictures of me chasing them down, watching them go through the waters. It's definitely been
Yeah.
a challenge. It hasn't been easy. So I mean,
Oh no,
I'm still
it's not easy.
it's
Yeah.
still a challenge for me. So I'm not I think that's what I like about it. It's kind of like, to be honest, you ever see those people that they get the gold fever? I feel like I have like the silver fever. Like I'm just so hooked on it, man. It's just a rush, and it's like that's the only kind of that's all I ever want to do now is just fish for tarpon. That's it.
Well,
Don't know how long this will last, but you know,
yeah,
as soon
and for
as
those who are listening online, I've been showing some pictures of Meryl's catches on tarpon on our on our live stream. So if you actually want to join us live, we are live every other Wednesday, or we try to be at facebook.com/one last cast podcast. Come on here and you can ask questions, talk to us. We're glad to have you. But yeah, there's some, he sent me some awesome pictures, and like, again, tarpon for on Texas is, I would say it's a it's a rarity,
yeah,
um and I think the I think guides now, they're back in the day, I've only heard of like maybe one or two guides who would do that. They would go out and try to target these tarpon. Now I feel like there's probably not. I'm not saying there's a lot more. There's a couple more out there now who
right,
know how to do it, um, and I think it's just part of the process of learning their migration patterns and what they're doing. And you may, while it is a rarity now, maybe it become a little bit more common down in the line in the future. But who knows? Um, but
yeah, yeah. There's yeah, you know, I think so I heard a little story from like Captain Chris, and it's like a guy named James Plog. He went down and fished with the or Louisiana boys and brought some of his tactics. So they kind of seen him here, and they're just like, man, how do we catch these? So he's learned some things, and he's kind of taught a whole bunch of these other guides that are they kind of fish in a small tight group, and they communicate, and and there's a lot of stuff that like you have to learn when you get out there in the water. You don't want to get too close to people. You don't want to run up behind a school. You don't want to have your motor on. There's a lot of little things. So when you go, and it's actually really normal for you to go tarpon fishing and not catch nothing. Like that's normal. Like, sometimes you get one shot at them, 0 for 1, and that's it. That's what tarpon fishing is. And I'm talking about our area, right? So obviously, if you go down to Port O'Connor or way down south, Port Mansfield, they those guys have a different fishery of the way the tarpon are down there. But I'm referring to our whole area, the Galveston coast kind of, and we have very good clear water. It's amazing. I haven't seen the water this clear ever. I mean, it was actually bluish all the way up to the shoreline, or light blue. So
it's not
yeah,
it's not what the news is saying, that it's blue to the beach every single year.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, no, it's not like that. But yeah, so we've been having really good water. But yeah, it's definitely a challenge, and um I'll be out there and trying to do the best that I can and get some cool footage, and maybe get a GoPro. Jonathan recommend, and maybe get some better footage. I know my iPhone doesn't have the best video camera. Should have
I'm
spent the $200 and got the better camera, but I
I'm
didn't.
pretty sure Meryl records with a potato. Yeah, the
Yeah,
video
yeah, I dropped my
the
phone, and oh man, it's just terrible.
um,
Uh,
but yeah, that's awesome, and I really can't wait to follow this journey that you have on the tarpon fishing, and especially from a kayak. Uh, I know that uh Mark Baker, he does it on occasion, where
yes,
he's caught tarpon and even cobia, kingfish, and stuff like that from his kayak.
right,
Really, but he's very knowledgeable.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
He's actually taking me under. That's what I'm learning a lot of this from.
okay,
Yeah, yeah. He kind of took me under his wing and teaching me the ropes and showing me, you know, do's and don'ts and stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's kind of the way to go. It's just there's so much fishing knowledge out there, and a lot of people specialize in certain areas. Like for example, there's probably if you want to learn a certain area, you really need to talk to some of those people who know that area really well because all they do is fish that one area. So like, Tabs, Burnett Bay, Trinity, all the way down to East Bay, West Bay. They're just guides and individuals who just have really, really specialized knowledge of those areas. They know exactly where that little drop off is, where those grass lines are, what the fish are doing on a yearly basis. Um, so I think just trying to kind of link up with some of these people and have them hopefully take them under your wing. That way that you can learn as well, and you can develop your own style of fishing and apply that knowledge across everywhere else. I think that's one of the best ways to learn.
Right, yeah. I wanted to share the story of our tournament fishing. If we have a little time, I feel like we got a little
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we I've been, like I said, I've been offshore, and it's like we had a inshore tournament. The saltwater derby, and 1 year I won it. And cool little trophy. They had up these big trophies with the hooks on them, and we got sponsored by Gil Julio's. Shout out to the Gil Julio's restaurant. If you haven't eaten there, they got some amazing oysters and these new oysters that they smoke on the grill, and awesome. Shout out to those people. Me, my buddy Daniel, and John, we went out and we tried our luck, and we tried to go for the big trout, and the tide wasn't right. Fish weren't cooperating. It was almost like they were just hitting the lure or hitting our bait. We were also fishing with bait, and they were just killing our bait, and we just couldn't get them to bite right. And the whole day was just searching for them and trying to get them. Time was running out, so we tried a last minute spot, and it paid off. Just time wasn't on our side, and I'm gonna use the excuse that everybody else uses is got stuck in the back of Greens Lake. I can't tell you how many times I heard that. Oh man, got stuck in the back of Greens. But yeah, we got stuck back. We didn't get stuck, but I'm using that excuse. But
But what was the fish that you caught? Quote
oh, so
unquote,
yeah, right.
quote
So
unquote
we
in the
caught
back of greens.
yeah, the back of Greens we caught a almost a 5 pound flounder and almost a 10 pound redfish.
Dang.
So I think I posted some pictures, or somebody posted some pictures on my page. There's also videos of tarpon. I have a ton more videos of tarpon. I might start posting those up. So yeah, if you want to look at those, probably post them up on One Last Cast podcast page. So check those out. But yeah, man, there was some really nice fish, and we had some other team members. They actually won some second place redfish. He had a solid like 7.5 pound, almost 8 pound redfish. But yeah, our two fish would have definitely cleared the slam pot. And we had a little 2 pound trout, maybe pound and a half trout. Wasn't great, but yeah, we went out there, and I think we just started having fun, and we're just like, man, But when we started catching those quality fish, we started looking at each other like, man, I think we got something here, but things didn't work out. But yeah, that
That's
was our
awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's also a good segue into um, our actual topic for today is the fall transition period. I think everybody who listens to us, we have heard, or maybe you've heard somewhere else. Transition periods for fishing are typically very difficult to fish. Uh, for me personally, the most difficult one is the transition between winter and spring. That's always difficult for me. And we talked about that extensively probably like 10 episodes ago. So go back and search for it, and it's good information. But one of the best transitions and one of the best times to fish is going to be the fall transition going into fall. It is, if you are struggling to catch fish, you've had a hard summer, it's hot outside, you're not standing out too long, and you're just striking out. This is the time to redeem yourself. And I think that, I think the first step into understanding why we think that Meryl and I think, and everybody, a lot of people think that fall is the best time to fish, is to understand what the fish are doing. So, Meryl, I'm going to let you start us off right there.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a real. I feel like these fish are starting to. They know something's about to happen, so they start feeding, start getting in these schools, and they start feeding and start eating a lot and start preparing for the winter. So they start eating a lot. The bait's moving a certain way. There's a couple hatches that are that are already spawned out, and makes for really good fishing. And these guys know when to eat, and it's usually this is the time when they start eating really really good, and it's definitely pretty pretty easy to go out there and catch you a limit. And I think this whole week and the week before, seen so many pictures of people. Congratulations, you guys catching fish, where they're catching limits in 30 minutes or an hour, and they're all stoked and they're all happy. And that's this is the time. This is the place, or this is the time to get out in the water and hone in on catching fish, and just catch some fish. Go out there and catch some fish. Um, I would target them differently each species, but typically they're all around the same area.
Yeah,
Um,
I was gonna say for me personally, we alluded to this last episode where we talked about flounder, the our previous episode where we talked about the how the flounder run this season is looking, and I'm deep in these these the Upper Bay area right now, just crushing the
Marshes,
flounder, yeah, and the
are you?
marshes and everything like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just crushing the flounder, but also, my our last trip that I went out on, I ran across my first flock of birds. They're popping up everywhere, and it was literally 20, 30, 40 trout that my group and I that we caught each. Um, they're not big, but
Who's in your
literally
group?
I took Curtis Chen and Philip. One of my neighbors. He. It's funny. I've been in the subdivision for like the last 4 or 5 years, and he kind of knew who I was, and didn't realize that we lived like really like within a few houses of each other. So
Oh, nice.
so we I've been meaning to fish with him for a little bit, and we went out there and we just started crushing trout on under birds. Literally every cast you cast them into where the trout are busting up these shrimp that they bring up to the surface.
All right.
It's just trout after trout, and um, even after the birds disappeared, of course, all the trout are doing just go down, and they're still feeding. It's just you can't see it. We just dropped
Right.
our baits down, and we were literally jigging for trout, just
Oh,
vertically.
nice.
Vertically, we're sitting in a channel. It's like 12, 13 feet, and we're literally dropping
Oh,
it down, counting to 8, just jigging up and down, and we just hook up on these trout. Sand
so where
trout
you?
mix in.
Yeah. So where was the spot at?
Yeah, we were in the back of Greens Lake as well. So
Oh, okay. Y'all are back there with me, huh? Y'all are
yeah.
back in Greens with me.
No, but we were in the we were definitely in the Upper Bay area system
Right.
of Galveston. And basically all these shrimp hatches are happening right now because, and especially now with our first cold front coming in today and tomorrow, Wednesday and Thursday of this week. Um, so those temps are going to drop, and it's really going to kickstart everything out. Um, and this is a time for those, especially for those who are struggling with artificial lures. It's just it's whether during the summer artificial lures can be tough, regardless of what time it is. Artificial lures can be tough, and especially if you are a live bait person, just you have always the urge to go back to what you're comfortable with. Um, and that, if that's live bait, it's live bait. But if you wanted to learn artificial, this is the time because
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
yeah, it's you go out here. This is actually the time that I go out and I learn to work different lures. Um, uh, I picked it up in the summer when I first started artificial lure fishing, and I quickly learned how to do top waters and soft plastics, and I would not try anything else because it worked. I was doing what worked, but during the fall, that first year when I was really doing artificial lures, during the fall is when I realized I need to expand my repertoire. How do I fish a corky?
Right.
How do I fish a mirrodine? Um, Spoons, how do I do that? So this was a time whenever I knew their fish were there, especially like you see birds, birds are everywhere, you're going to catch fish. but you just can't throw a corky. Well, I guess you could throw a corky out under the birds and just burn it in, and you probably still would catch a fish.
Right.
But with the proper learn how to work it, and under these conditions, you learn what the bite feels like. Um, this is a time whenever I go crazy sometimes, and I've thrown like buzz baits under the
Oh,
birds,
wow.
just because I know they're gonna bite at it.
It's a good
Um,
time to get rid of the ugly baits too, right? That you
yeah,
have
yeah,
thrown.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
on the bottom. It's got rust on it. I
Yeah,
have to
all
throw it,
all
get
of
rust
your
on it.
all the soft plastics that you kind of accumulated, but you're never going to use. They have rust things, or they're torn up a little bit
Yeah,
at the bottom. Yeah, just throw this on. This is the time to just kind of
yeah,
cycle through your old baits and just toss them out there.
yeah. There
Um,
you go.
but yeah, this is the time to use those new baits. I have a wake bait that I bought like a year ago that I haven't had luck with it yet. I've been trying to catch a fish on it. It's a it's a Pikachu wake bait.
What?
Yeah, it's a Pikachu wake bait.
If you get lucky with that, you gotta take a picture of
Yeah,
that, man.
I've been over in San Luis Pass. Like, it's the weirdest thing because I've been out there and I'll be catching slamming the fish on top water, like with my super spook. And I'm like, okay, I've gotten 3 trout. I'm gonna go cast out this Pikachu wake bait to see if it'll work. Nothing. I think I've had one swirl on it, and it could have been I just spooked a mullet. I have no idea. So
Oh man.
that is my goal for this fall is to use that, go out and find some birds and throw that out there, just to see how it works. But anyways, yeah, this is the perfect time to learn. Um, just throw down live bait. Don't take live bait with you. Get in the kayak, go out there. If you find birds, you're gonna have a great time. But if you don't find birds, um, this is the time to target drains. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So I got a question. So like some people like they struggle underneath, catching under the birds. It's not some people they don't get the so I'm getting this question like, hey man, we're under birds, we didn't catch nothing. So what kind of tactics, like if you see birds working, are you like analyzing? Is it shrimp? Is it shad? And if so, what are you paying attention? What are you doing? And what are you doing to become successful in those birds catching those under those birds catching fish?
yeah. So I think the first step is going to be making sure that the birds are diving because of fish. So there's multiple types of birds out there, and there's 3 of them that I've learned to recognize. Um, One of them is your traditional like seagull. That's the one that you really want to key in on because they're not going to expend the energy to just fly around and just kind of dive in the water for really no reason. Um, the other one is going to be the lyrebirds. They're kind of smaller. Uh, they can also lead you to fish, but you kind of have to watch what they're doing. If they're just kind of flying and they dive and they go back up and they continue flying and then they dive and it's a line kind of thing, you're I don't really worry about that. You really want a good concentration of birds. And I say good concentration. You really want them to be diving in the very small area. Um,
Like they're eating bait or like they're
yeah,
feeding for bait, right?
yeah. So one of the tools I have when I'm out here now, and I'm specifically looking for birds, I will bring binoculars because one of the things is number one, I don't have good eyesight. So when I'm out there and I see birds diving, I don't want to expend all the energy traveling like a mile, just
Right,
burning my legs, pedaling over the mile, and it's just not, it's just a trash can or something in the water, and
right,
they're just picking at something. So what you're
right.
really looking at is a cluster of birds. It could be it could be a whole flock of birds. It could be like 30, 40, 100 birds, or it could be as low as 2 or 3. It's just whatever's in the area. And if they're diving in the same area, and what you're looking for is what you're traditionally looking for is shrimp just jumping out of the water. You're looking for
Not
boils.
shad. You
It
look
could
for
be
small,
it
small.
could be shad. I've seen shad happen before too, but what you look at now, what I'm really looking for is shrimp, and you're looking for boils, and you're just looking for that activity. And what keys you in is those birds just sitting and flying over, hovering over that one spot. Um, and the other one is going to be pelicans. Pelicans is a little bit more interesting. They sometimes partake in these little feeding frenzies, and they're just dive bombing everywhere. I like pelicans more than lyrebirds because even when they're dive bombing, um, and this is more towards like San Luis Pass. This is where I usually like to see them. If they're dive bombing, there's more than likely there's good bait in the water and you can fish that. They're probably not going to be like the bird action where you can every single cast, but they'll lead you to where the bait is, which theoretically what the bait is, the fish are. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I've had a lot of success under pelicans, man. Like bigger fish, right? Like I've caught my bigger like trout under pelicans than I did under birds or seagulls. That's happened several times. Um, but yeah, that's a good point. So what about your retrieval? Like, what does that look like? Like, are you burning it across? Are you working it like a shrimp? Are you just throwing down there steady retrieval, couple pops, let it drop? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Lightweight,
So
heavyweight?
one of the things is if you're fishing for under birds, I like for me, I personally typically only throw a quarter size. I've had a big revelation this year. I know I've been like quarter ounces is the way to go. I've recently my revelation is that it's okay to have eighth, 16th ounce in your in your box, because especially when these current areas and the fish key in on the fall of the bait. So that's another topic for a different time.
Okay.
But but with the way the birds are working and the fish are feeding, typically I have what I have is a quarter ounce. I throw and just burn. That's really, if the fish are feeding, that's really all that you need to do. You do need to make accurate casts, because sometimes the fish are feeding and it's literally a an area that's like 5 by 5 foot. It's a very small area,
Right.
and if you're outside of that, you're not going to get hit.
Right.
But if you're in it, it's game on. Burn it through. A lot. If there are times whenever they're picky, I've had times whenever I'm burning it through, and for some reason or other, they're just not touching your bait. It could be that like it's too big, the action's wrong, whatever. Then they're for some reason they're not. It's very rare. Whenever they're feeding like this, you can literally throw like a Cheeto in there and they'll eat it.
Oh,
If
nice.
you can put a Cheeto on your hook, whatever you can put on your hook, you can throw a
You ever
gummy worm.
seen? Yeah, you ever see those guys out throw gummy worms or jalapenos and
Yeah,
all these stuff on these big schools, and they cook up, and everybody's like, "Oh my god, it's
yeah.
crazy."
I've
Yeah.
uh, I've been I was fishing in California for rockfish,
Hmm.
and I was using gum. Literally, I have a picture of me using gummy worms as
Oh,
bait.
nice.
Like it hit the bottom, you do a couple cranks, for it's a couple feet off the bottom, and it just like thump, and you set the hook, and you're just reeling up this rockfish because they eat everything down there. But yeah, with these birds, you literally just, as long as you get the accurate cast in, obviously you don't want to make sure that you don't get tangled with the birds. Curtis, I'm looking at you. While we were out
The
there,
bird catcher,
yeah,
the Curtis the bird catcher.
I was chasing these redfish that were like up against a structure. And Philip and Curtis had found the birds and they went over to the birds to go work on them. And then I went over there and I literally hear like first cast, Philip hooks up and Curtis hooks up and his lure is flying up in the air because a bird got it. And he spent like the
That's
next
a
the next 10 minutes trying to get this bird out while Philip and I were just hammering the trout next to him.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
So also like positioning yourself, right? How
Yeah.
important is that? Like
So
what do you like? Go ahead, go ahead.
yeah. There's two things that you need to do with positioning. Number one is recognize which way the school is going. You just follow the birds. If the birds are going towards you, number one, I would try to get out of the way, because you really don't. Sometimes they can be really finicky. Where if you're in the middle of them, you run them over, they get spooked and they scatter, and that may be it. I've actually literally been in a situation where it was, I was catching really good trout, accidentally ran over it, and that was it. Like, and yeah, typically they'd be working under the birds would be working for 30-40 minutes in the morning, and then I ran over that one school and that was it. They were done and they never came back up. So
Wow. Man.
recognize which way they're going. Um, and one of the good things is if you have like reverse, or if you have like a propel, native propel, with the prop that you can reverse, that way that you can make those micro adjustments on the fly as you if you go towards them and they change direction and start going towards you, then you can get out of there and get out of the way.
So do you stay like a good distance? Are you like 10 feet, 20 feet away just to make sure you're not?
Yeah. So
And
understand your casting distance. I want to be theoretically, I would try to be as far away as possible. Um, just because like what you're gonna do is you're gonna get that fish and you're gonna pull it out of the school and just get it as far away from the school as possible. That way it doesn't like if it makes that bunch of splashing noise up on top. I don't think it's happened before for me personally, but I would imagine that if they just if you have that splashing and it could spook everything.
right,
So you're just pulling. I treat it like the lights. You're fishing the lights.
right,
You get that fish and you're trying to pull it out of the light. That way you don't spook everything else.
right. So
It's
you
a much.
set the hook and you yank
You
them
set
out
the
of the
hook
water.
and you just crank it
Flip them on
and
the boat. No,
yeah,
just kidding.
yeah. So the first thing is recognizing the positioning and positioning yourself. That way you don't run over the birds or they don't go towards you or anything like that. The other thing is it's a little bit more difficult if there's another person fishing it or you're fishing it with two people. Now it's really about communicating with each other. I think we definitely talked about the etiquette of this. When people are fishing birds, you should definitely kind of like you don't want to be that person, especially in a kayak. You don't want to be that person that ruins it for everybody else. With those boaters, with those the boaters who have the trolling motors nowadays, man, they're with spot lock and everything like that. They're not moving from that spot, and they
Right.
can literally sit there and they're never going to be in the way of that school. Whereas with the kayaker, you're still drifting around.
Yeah. Got the
Um,
wind,
you
current.
got the
It's
wind,
not.
current, everything,
Yeah.
and you have to make sure that you, especially if there's somebody there first, that you're not going to ruin their fishing. Um, I've basically, if I've been in a situation where I was out there and I was going to fish a school, they invited me in the boat. They said, yeah, just come on. And I asked them, hey, mind if I fish? And they're like, yeah. I couldn't keep the wind was kind of pumping a little bit. I couldn't keep a good position uh, where I felt comfortable, where I was gonna like basically run over their lines. So I ended up leaving because it's not a good situation for me to be in. I don't want to be that person that runs over their lines, ruins their fishing, and do all that stuff. So just understand that if number one, if somebody else is fishing it, I would be I would ask. Yeah, I always ask. Hey,
Right.
can I slide in right here? Most nine
You
times out
cast
of
right
10.
over that line.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
got him.
Nine
Give
times
me
out
the
of 10,
competition.
9 times out of 10, they're gonna be okay with it. If they're not okay with it, it's not worth to
You
deal with
cast over
anyways.
the line and then you just reel it in, get them tangled, set that rod aside and start casting with the other rod.
Yeah,
Let
yeah,
him work that. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, yeah. Definitely
Nah,
don't be that person.
man, I kind of do like I just stay away from them, man. I just hope hope that you know man, most of the times like and it happens a lot. Like they'll run through the school or they get too excited and then so I always wait for them to mess it up and then if they regroup, I'm there close by and I jump on it. Or I just look for other birds or fish other places. I kind of just tend to stay away from people and just find somewhere else to catch fish. But I've been in a situation where I've invited people in and I'm like, man, there's plenty, dude. Just pick a spot and try not to go in the middle of them and, just let's all have fun. And sometimes they're like, you watching what they do and see how they're doing it. It's always, you might learn something from watching someone else, but yeah.
Yeah, I've also been in a situation where I invited somebody in and they had no idea how to handle the
Oh, seagull.
positioning. Oh yeah, like a seagull. Yeah,
They
and
cast right on the seagulls. And they're like, oh
they
man.
ruined it. So I've been also on the opposite end of that too, and I've also ruined some of the stuff too. I won't talk about that, but
and guys, don't be afraid. These seagulls, I know they got sharp beaks, but it really doesn't hurt that bad.
yeah,
Like the reason I say that is there's been a couple occasions where I've been on the water and these seagulls are dead because they got some string or line attached to them, and it's just man, it's instead of cutting your line way at the back end, just bring the seagull in. I promise you, though, a little beak doesn't hurt that bad, and get him freed up and let him on his way.
Yeah. Obviously, be safe about it, but at the same time, like the what did the
Yeah, yeah,
seagull
yeah. I'm
what
not
did the
saying
seagull ever do to you? You know?
is that the disclaimer, Jonathan, right
Yeah.
there? Like,
Yeah.
we're not saying going out there, but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, but cool.
Yeah, one of the other tactics that I also talked about last time on the flounder episode is going to be targeting these drains, and that's actually my go-to method right now. Yeah, we have Tina here saying the seagulls are cute, so I wouldn't worry about them biting me.
They
I
smell
don't.
bad. Most of them
Yeah,
smell bad.
they do smell bad. Yeah.
But
So, but yeah, one of the main methods that I've been doing is targeting these drains, and especially now we have our first front. Um, it's it's if you want a chance to catch your first slam, find a drain.
oh,
If you want,
yeah. Speaking of slams, we'll mention that later. But go ahead.
yeah, I was saying
Sorry,
that
Christian.
if you want to your chance to catch your first slam or catch your first grand slam where you get like a limit of everything.
Right.
It
Yeah, actually, you're right. This was the first time I caught the limit of all three species.
Yep.
Is during fall season. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's
Yep.
crazy.
I've done it. I've done a grand slam multiple times. I've done it once by just sitting at one location, and that was at a drain. It's just literally just sitting, just staking out, and just we had a cold front coming, a cold front that was coming that coincided with a strong outgoing tide, so it just like made the tide just rip out.
All right.
And I just sat there, and just that tide was ripping, and basically I was sitting down current from it, and I was casting into the drain and just letting it fall to the bottom and just bounce out.
Right. My first time was at Titlim Tatlum. So
Oh
you
yeah,
have, yeah, yeah. That was my first time at Titlim Tatlum. Sorry, Kyle's making me laugh here. I try
yeah,
to keep a
yeah,
straight face. But
yeah. Do
anyways,
it. I think
hey,
y'all guys need to get a room or something like that. Yeah,
yeah,
and some of these are
hey,
very suggestive.
all you new people that are on here, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you guys. Let us know how you know, how we can better serve you guys, I guess, or what you like to hear. Hit us up on the comments. I know we get a lot of new people. We get a lot of messages, and we never really address them. Sometimes we always talk about the people that we know, like Stacy, Tina, Curtis, Kyle. These are all, Grouch. These are all our regular people, but welcome new people. But yeah, so I was at Titlim Tatlum, and so I think it's got, what is it, Chocolate Bay or Chocolate
Yeah.
or Bastrop
Well,
Bastrop
it's
Bay, right?
Bastrop. Yeah, yeah.
Bastrop Bay, and then you have Cold Pass. So it was like a school of like trout, a school of flounder, and a school of redfish. And it was just like, it was probably one of my coolest places. I haven't fished there in a while, so if you guys get to get out there and fish Titlim Tatlum, it's a pretty good place. But yeah.
Yeah, actually, before you go further with drains, Stephen Barr is asking, what is your definition of a drain?
So a drain, I don't know the exact definition, but what I call a drain is pretty much just like a channel that leads out from the back of some kind of body of water, draining out to a bigger body of water or another body of water. So it's wherever the tide, when the tide falls, it's going to come out of this drain. So, because there's a bigger body of water or more body of water on the other end. So when it drains out, what happens is these fish get stacked up on the outgoing and sometimes on the incoming side. They'll get in these drains on the incoming side. That's, you want to try that too and see if that works for you. And when the water's moving through these tight points, they kind of stack there for bait and feed, and that's the easiest way for them to feed. And I don't know, maybe I'm not good with definitions. I'm gonna let
Okay,
you answer that one, Jonathan.
okay. So I think you got it mostly correct, but I think as a better kind of definition, my definition of a drain is any choke point that it's the only way in and out of a back area.
Yeah.
Or you can expand it a little bit where there's multiple smaller, locations. So if you think about a lake, you have a lake, and that's just water. you know, and then you have this one small area. It could be, and I say small, it doesn't have to be small. It could be literally um, a mile wide. Technically, that goes into, let's say, the Galveston Bay. That technically is a drain. Whatever for us as kayakers and whatever we're focusing on is literally a smaller, area. Probably, some of the drains I've been fishing, they're literally, 5, 6, 7 foot across. They're not that big. They're very small. It's a choke point that leads to a back area, and all the water from that back area has to flush out to this area. One of the things you're looking for with a good drain is that, number one, it that it has, if it's a good moving drain, it's going to be deep in some areas of that drain. So what happens that if you think about it, all that water is flushing out. It's going to carve out a bowl right in the front of it. Um, so you have that bowl. So it's going to be that drain itself. When you go actually in it, it's going to be like a foot or two. But at the front of it, when you have the outgoing tide and going down, it's at the front of it, it's going to be like 3, 4, 5 foot. So that's kind of the anatomy of a really good drain. I think we could even just do one whole episode at some point to just talk about drains, because that's just
Right,
it's
right.
just find how to find it. Yeah, Tommy has it right as like a bottleneck.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Curtis says like Clear Lake flowing in the forward back and forth in the Walter Hall Pond. Yeah, that's a good one. Wish you wouldn't mention Clear Lake
Where's
because
Walter Hall Pond? What's that?
that's further down. It's almost towards 45. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
that weird that park. There's a park right there, but
Yeah,
right?
there's a
Is that?
park right there. A lot
Mm,
of power boaters like to launch there, so I typically avoid that.
mm,
But anyways, yeah, that's my definition of a drain. And like that one time that I limited out on everything. And this is back whenever the trout limit was like 10. Um, but I literally just sat there, off to the right of this drain. All the water's flushing out, and you could see mullet, shrimp, just and shad just flushing out of here. Um, every so
big old
often,
schools just working their
yeah,
way through.
yeah, and it was every so often towards on the sides of that drain. It was just fish would just bust up right there. So I'd literally cast up towards the sides where the drain opens up to, and I'll let that bait flow back out, and it would just be thump. And
Mm,
I first started targeting flounder because they're just sitting on the bottom right there, and you hit the bottom, you could feel it bounce, bounce, bounce as it came back towards you, and it'll
mm-hmm.
just stop, and then you lift it up, and you feel some weight, set the hook, get my flounder, string it up. Okay, I got my 5 right there, and then cast it up into the drain, just burn it out, and then you just hold on, and a trout would come up, pick it up, or a redfish would come and pick it up. And
Nice.
it was just me and my buddy, and I think we got close to two grand slams, where it's a limit of trout, redfish, and flounder. I got my grand slam, and I think he came like 2 redfish and a couple trout short of it.
Mm,
But it was just like that was the most amazing, that like we were sitting there, not doing anything and just casting.
nice.
And there were so many trout too, is that it was, yeah, every other cast, if you didn't get a bite, you just reset and you would get a trout. So
Mm,
um this is the time to do it. And yeah, it's just finding those really good drains. Not all drains are equal. Like I said, some of them are literally, actually the last trip that I went on last week, I was exploring a couple new drains that I wanted to check out. They sucked, mainly because they're the water's flowing out of it. It was just too shallow. It was literally like ankle deep. There was no deep pockets in there. And I mean, it could be productive. Like I saw maybe some redfish back there, but it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So,
so like signs, you mean, right? You look for
mhm,
signs, right? You don't see those signs. It's like, yeah, it's not worth it. You
yeah,
know.
yeah,
But
Ben.
yeah.
We typically we mainly kayak fish. And well, Meryl mainly kayak fish. I kayak, and I usually hop out and wade somewhere, but during the fall, I'm mainly in the kayak. I don't really hop out until the winter, spring, and summer. So
Yeah, man. Man, I try to do that wade fishing thing, and I'm just so, I think I'm just so comfortable in my kayak. I've learned how to drift and work that way, and position myself certain ways. And
Yeah, it's a whole different it's just another method to use. So
right.
uh, anyways, for those of you listening online, yeah, this is the One Last Cast podcast. If you want to listen to us live or watch us live, ask questions, we're live every other Wednesday on our Facebook page, also on YouTube. Just go to facebook.com/One Last Cast podcast. On YouTube, just search One Last Cast podcast, and you can join us there as well. Ask questions and join us. That way that you can learn and we can talk fishing.
Yeah,
But
there's also a lot of people with experience on our that usually join us, and maybe they can answer your questions and give you different advice, and one might be more helpful than the other one to you, and so there's a lot of experienced people on here that follow this page, and we appreciate you guys. So
yeah.
heads up.
I have a question that I've been asking myself recently in regards to. So I mentioned earlier that I've been kind of playing around with downsizing on occasion to from a quarter ounce to an eighth, 16th. Um, what's your thoughts on downsizing the bait size for during the fall, like early on? Because like the shrimp that I'm seeing, tiny, tiny shrimp that are
Man,
jumping out of the water.
man, I don't know if I can give you the best advice, because I kind of like me. I'm just like, man, I like throwing big baits. And the reason why is will you catch a small fish on a big bait? Yes, you will. But the probabilities of you catching a small fish on a big bait, it kind of decreases, right? The bigger your bait, I'm a firm believer, the bigger the bait you throw. And I'm not saying you can't catch a record breaker trout on a fly, right? That's happened, right? But I just like throwing big baits because I get better quality fish. So do I don't really use jig heads that much anymore. I kind of use these pre-rig baits, and they're easier to tie on these pre-rig baits. I felt like they were the future when they started making them. I think Voodoo had a good idea. You know, a lot of other
Yeah.
companies, Tsunami, they got some good pre-rig baits. These wake baits, these bigger wake baits. I just like them, man, because I can just tie them on, or if you have one of those clips, you can put them on your clip, and you ain't got to worry about putting the jig head. So I probably wouldn't be the best because I got away from using so many jig heads.
Mm.
I just I just don't use them. So
I
sorry I
I
couldn't answer that
no,
question.
no, no, no. Uh, a quick story, and I may have told this already, but when I was dating my wife and I took her fishing for the first time, we had an awesome day in the surf. I took her out there, and the last bait that we had in our bait bucket, we were using croaker, catching trout and all that. Our last bait that we had in the bucket was a croaker the size of our hand, like a
Mm,
giant croaker. And she was like, "Does bigger bait equal bigger fish?" And I was like, "No," because like my biggest trout came off, a little 2-inch trout killer
right,
2 junior. It just depends on
right.
what they're eating. Um, and she's like, "Oh, okay." Casted it out, and she caught like a 40-inch bull red.
Oh,
And so she keeps telling me now that bigger bait equals bigger fish. So, um,
right.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to know because I've been thinking about especially whenever the fish get finicky in the under the birds, which again is very rare, but it does happen.
Right.
Of downsizing your lure to match whatever hatches out there.
Right, just fall
Um,
like so like like that in that instance. Like sometimes I like throwing like a DOA shrimp at them, right? Because it's already pre-rigged, right? And I just or a shrimp, and I'll throw that, and it just falls slower. Sometimes that fall or like a sand eel. I like those sand eels. The way they bounce with those bellies, the weights in the bellies. I
yeah,
really like those. Daniel says he throws a 3.5 is his go-to for sure in the fall. So that's a little bit bigger of a bait. I know he also likes to throw that Mambo mullet. That Mambo mullet's money. That's a bigger bait, and I seen those catch some really nice redfish at the tournaments. Voodoo Vixen, yeah, that's a good one. These are just pre-rigged baits that I kind of throw, but yeah.
I
I used to throw like I'll go from a 16th or no a 3/16 to a quarter. Those are the two ones that I like to throw a lot of. But then actually I do throw big heavy weights when I'm fishing like big deep currents. I use 1/2 ounce jig heads sometimes to help me out with my bait getting down there because I know the fish are down there. But I haven't done that in about a couple months or so. So yep.
Yeah, you've mentioned voodoo, and I do want to bring them up because they are awesome baits. Like the voodoo shrimp that they have, they're
Yeah.
made from a TPE plastic, which is almost indestructible. Uh, One of the downsides of having soft plastics, even with the knocking tail lures that I love so much, the downside is it's a soft plastic. It's gonna after for me, if you rig it right, you're gonna have 10, 15, 20 fish and it's gonna be dead. Um,
Right.
they just rip it up. But with the voodoo shrimp and the vixen, man, with the made from the TPE plastic and the way to design it, you literally I've had shrimp. I still have voodoo shrimp in my fishing closet that I had 200 trout, and it's just sitting in my closet because I
Oh
retired
wow.
it because it looks so gnarly now, but it still works really, really
Right.
well.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I
you know,
have I had that one that I was posting, that one truce, what was it, Sandio white with truce tail that caught 25 trout over 25 inches, and it was still intact, still
yeah,
intact. That was a good one. But yeah, man, I keep forgetting, man. Like, man, I just haven't been fishing a lot of inshore like I used to. But yeah, I do throw a lot of the when I am throwing it, it's usually shorelines. I'm punching shorelines for redfish, which is anywhere between a 3/16 to a quarter ounce. If I'm fishing for redfish, knocking tail is one of my favorite ones. The Texas roach, and I kind of stick to those. I have other colors, but for some reason, I think confidence in the color and in your bait is really big. I know I wasn't confident throwing a bait the other day when we were fishing the tournament. I felt I just felt off, right? And then so I put on a bait that I was comfortable with, and I felt better. Like just the way it casts, the way it feels, how I'm presenting it. But yeah,
yeah, and yeah, they're a little bit on the, and in the overall scheme of things, they're not like horrendously expensive, but they are a little bit on the expensive side for baits. I think it's
right,
like roughly between $7 to $9 for a pack of two for the voodoo shrimp.
right.
Um, but like I said, it's really good value because you could literally catch 200
Did
fish.
you
Like,
Did you ever fish the tournaments back in the day, the original saltwater survival
yeah,
series?
yeah,
Yes, where you had to wake up early in the morning.
yeah,
You go to
shotgun
the
start,
shotgun
yeah,
start. You pick up
shotgun
your.
start,
You didn't know what baits you were gonna get, guys, on
yep,
this tournament. Those were fun. Those were fun days.
yeah,
And like they give you a bag of baits, and all you can fish with is those baits, and that was it. So then they said they send you out. You got to catch a specific fish with these specific baits, and that's it. And you got to be back at the weigh-in. And
yeah.
that's
I
about a good what
remember, I
5 6 years
remember,
ago.
yeah, that was a while back. I remember I went out there, and um, I that because I knew the baits that you're gonna get, they were given from the sponsor, which is like Voodoo and Egret. So you at least knew that's the kind of the baits that you're gonna get.
Right.
Um, I hated fishing the wedge tail. I just didn't like fishing the wedge tail. But I knew that's literally the only soft plastic you're gonna get is the wedge tail. Um, and I was playing around with it one day in the area that I wanted to go to for trout, and I was like, for some reason, the way the wedge tail worked, they wouldn't touch it as a traditional soft plastic with a jig head and a wedge tail. It just wouldn't
Right.
touch it. Um, I ended up figuring out it was I don't even know why I did it, but I did. I it ended up working. The trout would hit it if you split shot rigged it. So it
Oh
was
wow.
slightly suspended with like a little split shot hook, and
Uh-huh.
it would just sit like the way it sat in the water. It would just sit right there, and you kind of just wiggle up and down, and it would just come up and hit it. And the funny thing was, like, a lot of times I didn't even feel the bite. Like, I would just wiggle it, and it finally just felt pressure, and I would just
Uh-huh.
set the hook. I was fishing in like 20 feet of water, and
Oh wow.
I just knew the fish were there, but I was literally like drop shotting wedge tails down down in this area, and only reason why I was there is because and the reason why I scattered out that area is because it was that tournament. It was like 30-mile-an-hour winds that day from the north,
Right.
and it was the only
Sounds
place
about
I was.
right. Those were our
It was
tournament
yeah.
days back then.
It
Yep.
was it was the only place I was protected. I was just sitting there. I was the only person there, and I was just sitting there, just like just jigging this drop shot of wedge tail. And I brought in a limited trout, and I remember like, okay, today I may get in the money because
Right.
whenever you have a hard day like that, everybody's gonna have a hard day. It equalizes it really well.
Right.
And then I remember going up to the thing, and it's like, okay, I got my limited trout. And he's like, oh yeah, yeah, good job. I know it's gonna be a tough day today. Clint Bargy came in. He came in like 2 hours after the shotgun start, and then he weighed in his fish and left, and he got first place. and
He does
I'm
it
like,
right.
I'm like, what
Yeah,
the heck?
I like how modest he is about it too. He's like,
Yeah,
yeah, man, I got a couple good ones, but maybe I'll place. Like, dude, you just brought in like 3 or 4 pounders. you know, like, that's
it
funny.
was a trout one too, and he came. He apparently I never that day. I didn't even see him. Like he had something he had to do, so he literally went fished for a few hours, came in, weighed in, and then he left, and he wasn't even there to get his check, his first place check. Uh,
Mm,
I ended up I think in like sixth place or something like that because all the trout I caught were small. They weren't like
mm.
even though I got the weigh in limit, they weren't big. Um, like people who came in, I think it was like a 3 or 4 fish limit, and people brought in two, but they were like chunky 3 4 pounders, and I
Right.
brought in my limit, and they're like a pound each. So,
I remember that one time you brought in that one big one, and you just needed one more to get first.
yeah.
Yeah, that was another
But
tournament. Yeah.
I did want to show, and I'm not sponsored by them, but I do love their products. Is Bass Assassin. They make some really good soft plastics, and they still are my go to straight tail lures. Um, just right now my go to is obviously the knocking tail because it's just so versatile. But there are times whenever you need the subtle kind of darting motion of a straight tail. Um, and I recently came across these. It's the straight tail. It's like a 2.5 inch shad assassin. Very small.
Mm,
Um, and there's a certain area that I'm looking forward to using it because my go-to 2.5 inch one was the Trout Killer 2 Junior from Texas Taco Factory, which they don't make them anymore. But there's an area where it has really strong current during the fall. It's really strong current, and it's basically you stake out in like a 2 foot section, a 2 foot ledge, and it just drops until to 8 to 15 feet.
I know where
And
that's at. No, I'm just
okay,
kidding.
yeah,
I'm
and
just teasing. I'm
and
just
that and
teasing.
the trout that what happens is that you would think they'll be up on the ledge, or off that on that drop off, but because of the way the current works in that area, it's very difficult to cast there. So there's a lot of boaters who, on occasion, they'll actually be out in the channel, and they'll cast towards the shore and bring it down. But I think to the trout, it's very unnatural for them, and occasionally you'll pick out a trout, but for me, sitting on that ledge and casting into the channel, and using a light enough weight where it's not like just flying through, but basically it's going through the water column. And basically, I've been out there, and I would literally be boats like in front of me, and or they wouldn't be in front of me, but they'll be near me, casting towards shore,
Mhm.
and I'd be casting out, and I would just be hooking up a trout. So
They
I'm
do
really
that
looking.
all the time in
Yeah,
greens. They
yeah,
do that all the time in the back of greens. those those boaters.
yeah. But yeah, this is
Oh, thanks for sharing that, man. That's
yeah.
pretty cool looking. It looks like I don't know what it looks like.
Yeah, it's
Maybe a
just a straight tail.
shad,
Yeah, it's a shad. Um,
maybe.
and I got this like whole pack right here. It's like a pack of 100.
Oh, smokes.
I got it for like $5. So
Dang.
so by the way, a little nugget for you guys listening right here. If you're interested in jig heads right now, the reason why I'm mentioning this because I've already bought all I need. um, uh, Bass Assassin. If you go to their website and go to sale, they have I think it's their Buddha shaker jig head. I don't know why it's called a Buddha shaker. It's a very, very good, well built jig head by a reputable company. They have their packs of three in 16th, eighth, and quarter in various colors. They have a pack of three for $1.
Oh,
So
wow. that's you save a lot of money if you go through a
Yeah,
lot of jig
it's
heads there.
literally 33 cents a jig head. Whereas
But
now a lot.
I kind of think you just buy those to buy those because like I'm almost certain you gotta stockpile these sales stuff. Like you're like, oh, I'm getting it's cheap. You got this big old stockpile of lures and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just because you're a sales, you like to sell one of those guys. If it's on sale, I get it.
Yeah, yeah, but jig heads are something that you go through constantly.
Or you go
So
through
I go
constantly.
through constantly just because, after a while they get rusted and stuff like that, and I don't take care of it. I just clip it off and chunk it. It's
Mm.
done. Because again, the one of the things about you take care of if you take care of equipment, it takes care of you. You don't want to the weak link on you fighting your trophy trout for the
Mm.
hook to fail or something like that.
Yeah, I
Um,
learned that the hard way though,
yeah.
like just how important a new hook is, a fresh sharp hook, a fresh line, change out your lines, stuff like that. Take care of your rod and reels.
Hmm.
Take care of your kayaks, your drives. Uh
Yeah,
man,
I don't do that as much, and I should.
yeah, so yeah, like if I'm going into shallow waters with my kick up fins or just regular fins and my Hobie kayak, I pull that drive out and put it up back. I don't try to kick through oyster shells or kick through the mud with those things because I got a pair of kick ups that I've had for 3 years now and never once. I think I do need to replace the little plastic insert that it the kick ups where it holds it
Yeah.
and it goes through. Like, but other than that, I mean, man, no issues. And it maybe sometimes you put a little bit of strain on that black wire, but those are
Mhm.
easily replaced. But if you take care of your drives, man, or take care of your equipment in general, your rod, reels, poles. I learned the hard way though. I lost a lot of money. So
Yeah. I do like what Clayton here on Facebook here he mentioned approach is everything. Yeah, and that is completely true. And that's especially true with this fall approach. This fall transition is making sure that you have the understanding what's going on out there, um, and presenting it right. It- we I think one of the things is that we make it seem really easy, and it is kind of easy. Um, but if you don't have an idea what's going on, you're just going to go out there and have the expectation like we're hyping up fall so much. I'm going to go out there and catch a limit of everything.
mhm.
Um, you do have to put in the time and understand like the conditions and all that. I just think that this time of year it's a little bit easier for those starting out. Um,
Yeah.
and definitely, I remember my first year. I got such a big head. Like I thought I was all that. I was limiting out and
Time to
trout
get
every
pro
time.
staffed, right?
Yeah, trying to get pro staff, and then
Everybody wants to get pro staffed
oh
now,
yeah, pro
catching
staff
all these
everything,
fish.
and then winter happened, and I
Yeah.
stopped catching fish.
So there is some lunatics out there that fish during the winter. So just heads up.
Yeah,
We'll
we're
probably be going over those winter tactics. But yeah, we have a lot of fall information on how to target, what baits we use, how we're retrieving, and some of our older podcasts. So just kind of shuffle through those, and maybe you're on a ride home and you want to just listen to us and listen there. We got a couple gems in there for you.
I do want to throw out kind of a spot. And I do want to say this. Tommy is completely right. Winter is better than fall. Winter is by far my favorite time. Um,
Just because of the quality, right?
yeah. No, no. If you play your cards right, you can have quality and quantity. You can have both of the things
Oh yeah,
during
yeah,
during the
that's right.
winter.
Yep.
But I did want to throw out that Trinity Bay is going to be really good. I think it's going to be really good this year. Um, so if you are looking for a location, I'm just going to throw out. It's a very big area. Trinity is huge. Um, Trinity Bay is going to be great. Um, if you have access to a boat, go look up Jack's Pocket. I mean, that's going to be great. If you don't have access to a boat, I don't really know of too many walk-in spots that you can go there, but just find those boat ramps with a kayak for you kayakers and just go in there. I think it's going to be good because we discussed this maybe last episode or a couple episodes ago, where because we don't, it was last episode because we haven't had a lot of rain, the salt water has gone further up, and I think there's going to be a lot of good brackish water because it's all brackish water from the Trinity River. Going to be a good brackish water mix to promote a good fall bite. So
more bait, maybe, right?
Yeah,
Or you think?
more. I think more the shrimp hatcheries would be much better, causing more bait. And Jack's Pocket and those areas in Trinity is going to be great.
Yeah, my buddies that catch bait, he said, man, these have been the biggest shad hatches and big schools of mullets that they've ever seen. So it's getting better and better, and the more bait fish is more opportunity for our game fish to eat and eat more, and maybe they can breed more and spawn more. So I agree with you. It's going to be really really good, and we haven't had really big tide movements where it's pulling a lot of water out too. We've been having a lot more swollen tides as well, so that's also helping out our hatchery
Yep.
system with these
Yep.
bait
And
fish.
um, I know we're kind of running up on time, and there's one last thing
Oh
I wanted.
snap! It's already
Yeah.
past an hour.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. There's just so much fishing to talk about. Um, but are you doing the saltwater survival series tournament
Oh,
this
thank
coming
you for
weekend?
reminding me. Yes. So man, I got a lot going on. I won't probably know till Friday night. So guys, if you want right now, there's a really cool tournament. You can meet a lot of cool people. Maybe just go to the weigh-in and hang out and talk to some people. These guys love telling their stories, love telling you how they catch them, where they catch them.
It's
Not all of
fishermen.
them.
We all like talking stories.
Yeah, we all have fishing stories. Yeah. Um, 9 out of 10 times, the winner got off at the boat, right? But Saltwater Survival Series, they have a tournament down there by Sunset Lounge
In San Leon.
in San Leon. There'll be food there. Cutoff time to sign up is this Friday at 10 o'clock. The slam pot, nobody's won it the last two tournaments, so it's a huge pot, guys. So if you think you can go out there and get lucky and catch you a good trout, redfish, and flounder, you probably could be in the running, or probably even win you a nice big check, and then also come hang out with some pretty cool people. I think Jonathan, you're fishing it. My buddy John's fishing it. I probably won't know more realistic till like end of Friday night. I gotta make some runs, and if so, I can only fish like 3 or 4 hours, and then turn my fish in real early, and then my daughter's birthday party. So got a lot going on. So
Got to cancel it.
yeah,
Just kidding.
yeah. She'll
But
have another one. She'll
yeah,
have another one. Oh, Phil,
looks
Phil, Phil
Phil.
is in.
Yeah, Phil is in. So yeah, if you it's this time it's going to be it's a flounder tournament. Go ahead if you want to sign up. Go to SSS kayaktournament.com. They have all the rules and stuff like that on there. Sign up on there. Be sure to definitely get the side pots in. From experience, I've I fished it. I fished the tournament constantly, and my biggest check was nearly $1,000 because I won. I didn't win any. I did not win the main pot, but I won multiple side pots.
Mhm.
Um, and I actually could have won more if I actually signed up for all the side pots, but I did not. So so yeah, and according to the tournament director Daniel Hayes here, he's on the chat. The slam pot it will be above $1,000, so that's awesome. Um, you can't win it if you don't fish it. So go
Yeah.
over there and sign up. And for those of you who are listening in podcast land, this is the One Last Cast podcast. We are live every other Wednesday. If you want to join us live, go to facebook.com/. One Last Cast podcast, or search us on YouTube, our YouTube channel. You can find us there too, and you can join in on the fun, ask questions. If you don't want to ask questions on those pages, you can always email us at onelastcastpodcast@gmail.com. I actually recently, Meryl, I recently got our first email question. Helped this guy out. He's taking his family. He loved our flounder episode. He's taking his family down to Christmas Bay. Offered up some advice on there, and you know, and hopefully he does well. He says if he catches anything, he'll send us pictures. So that's great.
Sweet. What did you,
Um,
which did you direct him with lures or mullet or
he's doing mullet. So
mullet? Okay,
yeah, I told him to go to Back of Greens, and
there you go. That's where they're at.
yeah,
That's where I
no,
caught that fly pounder.
I mentioned to that him to launch from the San Luis County Park over there and
Mhm.
target those drains, and mainly also because there's facilities there for his kids. That way that they can if they need to go bathroom or anything, they can always head back.
Right.
But yeah, yeah. If you have questions, just send us our way. We love to help people. We do this podcast to help all of our fellow fishermen out there in Galveston and beyond become better fishermen because I think maybe I could speak for you, Meryl. We both remember whenever we first started fishing and how it was, and we want to help pass our knowledge on to everybody else.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I think this kind of will end our episode here. Before we head out, Meryl, do you have any other, final words to say about fall fishing or anything like that?
I do, but I mean, we're out of time, and we will probably be here all day
Okay,
talking about fishing.
yeah.
But yeah, so I'll just hold that in, and maybe we'll talk about it another time.
We'll talk
But
about it the next time. All right. So before we head off, one more time, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. We have DSK, Dirty South Kayak Anglers. If you're looking for a Facebook page for fishing and kayaking, go over there. Also, for a printing, Aaron does of our merch for custom towels. He has our custom buffs. I think he also does shirts too. So if you're looking for stuff like that, contact Aaron over at 4A. And of course, Knocking Tail Lures. Use code OLCP 2022. That is OLCP 2022 to get a discount on your order. Go search them up, use them. They're one of the best soft plastics. Actually, no, I think I know that they're one of the best soft plastics out there. And we look
definitely
forward to hearing back from you guys of your stories and everything like that. Send us messages. Y'all guys have a great day. See you guys next time.
take care, guys.